welcome to Blow the Whistle, your Friday lowdown on all the sports happening in and around the Northwest. I'm Evie.
And I'm Max, and welcome back to the show. Remember to keep up to date with the conversation by following us on Instagram at blowthewhistle.us. We use social media each week to hear from you, so remember to drop us a follow. Coming up on today's show, we'll have the latest on uni sports, plus an insight of a grassroots referee, and of course another busy week in Qatar with the 2022 World Cup. Right, let's kick things off then. Freelance football journalist James. James, good to see you.
Good to see you.
We said we'd get you in throughout the World Cup. How's it gone so far? How have you seen the tournament from a kind of a journalist perspective?
I think it's been fascinating to watch it unfold. I think that the stories at this World Cup, especially when it comes to human rights abuses, when it comes to there's so many things to talk about when it comes to Qatar. And what I thought about this World Cup, especially that was most interesting, was the opening game, Qatar versus Ecuador. The first thing that Gary Lineker said, he mentioned human rights and cut to a package basically about that. And I think we've never seen that before, that intense scrutiny. And I think Qatar, in a way, are almost regretting it because they've had so much stick, and rightly so, over the past few weeks, that it's almost the reverse of what they've been trying. And I mean, on the field, I think the games have been entertaining to a point, but there's been more nil-nils than there was in the last World Cup. I think the last group stage matches have been entertaining in terms of yesterday, Mexico going out right at the end, nearly on the fair play rule. I think the reason why we love the World Cup especially is the drama and the shocks and the moments that it creates. And Australia versus Denmark as well was another great game. And I think, especially coming up towards the end of the group stage now, we're going to see more fun like that.
And what did you make of England's performance so far?
I think they've been really impressive. I think a lot of people expected them to do well in this tournament. I mean, they've got a relatively easy group. I think the Iran game maybe exceeded expectations a bit. But, you know, Wales had come into their first World Cup since 1958. They were desperate to beat England. Obviously, they had to score by 4 goals because of the result in the other game. But even then, Wales have qualified, you know, by beating Austria and beating Ukraine. 2 good sides. And I think they'll be disappointed as well because I think Rob Page, you know, a lot of people are asking him now to resign as well as manager because they finished bottom of the group only on 1 point. So I think that's the issue with Wales. I think a lot of fans there would be disappointed. They'd be happy to go, but I think they could have done much better.
There's been a lot of criticism given to Southgate for not starting, you know, players like Foden, for example. He started the other night against Wales. Do you think that the squad will be similar to how it was against Wales to now, of course, the knockout round against Senegal on Sunday?
I mean, I think rotation comes into a lot of this. I mean, there's not much turnaround in terms of the games. I think compared to other World Cups, the good thing for England, I mean, the problem they had in Brazil and the problem they had in Russia was the massive time difference in the travelling they had to do. I mean, Qatar, all the stadiums are right next to each other, so they don't have that problem. But the games are much shorter in terms of the turnaround. So I think he's going to change it up a bit. I think he'd like to. But I think the problem is with Southgate, he doesn't really like to rotate his squad much. And the main criticism that he had in the Euros was the reason why England didn't do as well as people expected them to was because players like Grealish weren't getting the games that they wanted to, weren't being brought on. And I think he has been more attacking because he's had to be. I mean, with the players that he's got, you know, England scored, was it 6 against Iran? You know, they were very comfortable against Wales, could have been a lot more. And I think he's got to go more attacking because the main criticism I'd have of Southgate that happened in the Italy game, that happened in the Croatia game, in his big matches, he doesn't go more on the front foot. And when England take the lead, he often sits back against big teams. So it'll be interesting to see what he does when England come up against a France or someone bigger, because Senegal, you're thinking, okay, well, they should do okay against them. I think they'll be harder than people expect because they've got through the group. They've done a good job as well. They've got some really good players. But it'd be more interesting for me when it gets to the latter stages what tactics he goes for.
Are there any star players for you so far in the England squad and just in the World Cup as a whole?
I think Rashford's really impressed for England. I think a lot of people were criticising him, rightly so, earlier on in the season. He was snatching at chances, he wasn't really delivering. But I think because we were saying last week, because of the fact it's in the winter, there's players like Rashford, players like Wilson that fit a purple patch in the league that have gone straight into the World Cup and have got a lot more confidence now. I mean, if it was towards the end of the season, you'd think, oh, they're a bit tired, probably not the same player, maybe carrying a couple of injuries, but because they're so fresh, because the season's still 2 or 3 months in, they've got that urgency in there. And players as well like Cody Gakpo, I know he's been highly rated at PSV, but scored in every single game for the Dutch side. I think he's going to have a lot of big clubs looking at him now, especially if they push on into the latter stages of the tournament. You know, we might have a situation on our hands like after 2014 when Memphis Depay, everyone was talking about him. But I think it's interesting because we have had players before, like Joel Campbell for Costa Rica was amazing for them. Didn't really do much after that. Ochoa's another goalkeeper for Mexico that always does a great World Cup. His club career has not quite been the same. So I think that's interesting seeing players that always perform well for their country. Bale, not quite the same, but another good example. They don't seem to be able to do it quite as well for their club sides.
Where have you been watching the World Cup? Because there's been so many fan parks and things this year, hasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I've not really been watching it. So in terms of going out, I'm not a huge fan of watching the football with loads of people. I just don't know how you can enjoy it with people throwing pints and stuff. It's just not, it's not my thing. I've been watching it in my flat. I watched the Wales game. Actually, no, the USA game. I watched it in a hotel bar because I walked into town. So I was off to a gig. And I was like, well, I'll try and find somewhere that's showing it. Everywhere was obviously ticketed or fully booked, so I just found this hotel on Oxford Road and watched it in the bar there. I was like, this will do. I'm not fussed.
Brilliant.
And what do you think, how far do you think England will go in the World Cup?
It totally depends on the draw. They should be able to beat Senegal, and then after that we'll see. But I think probably semi-finals, depending on who they play. But like I was saying, Southgate has had a lot to learn recently, especially with the two major tournaments he's had with England, in the sense that he took them to the semi-final of the World Cup. I think Croatia was a big mistake, in the sense that was probably England's easiest ever run to a final, in terms of the fact that they played Colombia, Sweden and Croatia to get to World Cup final. You know, it doesn't get much easier than that, really. So I think this year he's got to be able to do much better against the bigger sides. And I think my criticism of him would be, like we were saying in the Euros and in the World Cup, he didn't face those bigger teams until it was too late in the tournament to figure out how to play against them. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he does, and how he does with his tactics in those big games.
And finally, James, just quickly, do you think Southgate will stay as England manager after this World Cup, whatever happens, or do you think he's going to stand down?
I think so. I mean, I think the project that he's done, I mean, if you look before Southgate, Hodgson, I mean, people forget England were really, really poor. There was that stat about them not winning a knockout game for, I think it was 14 or 15 years or something. It was a very long time. And again, under Capello, it was really poor. I think the thing that Southgate has done is he's got people more interested in England. I mean, I remember 2014, 2016, it was a really, really poor performance from England. They went out in the group stage in 2014, they lost to Iceland in 2016, and I think what Southgate has done is he's got people caring about the England team. I think the Nations League has helped that as well. I think a lot of the friendlies, a lot of the qualifiers. I mean, England qualified by winning every game in 2010 under Capello, but there just wasn't that enthusiasm for the team like there is now.
Yeah, thanks very much, James.
Well, thank you, James. James will be back in the next couple of weeks as the World Cup advances.
Yes, now it's been a busy week for all of Salford Uni's sports. Our university sports correspondent has more.
Yes, with the semester drawing to an end, the uni sides are playing their final few games ahead of the break for Christmas. It was a tough week for the Salford sides though. We start in basketball as the first team lost for the first time this season at home against Manmet Seconds. A 73-52 defeat leaves Salford second in the league, Manmet overtaking them with that win yesterday. Salford play Leeds next week in the hope to gain a little bit of momentum ahead of the restart in January. No luck was found for the rugby union side though, as they lost away from home 17-12 against Bangor. They're going to hope that they can finish above Bangor this season though, but will need Leeds to beat them on the final day for that to happen. In football, and the men's first team were unable to bounce back from exiting the cup last week. They lost 5-0 away at Edge Hill in a mid-table clash. The second team are still yet to win a league game this season. They fought valiantly here at Salford against top of the league UCLan, only losing 4-2. And the third team managed to ride the momentum of winning in the penalty shootout last week in the cup. They defeated Bolton 2-1 away from home, currently sitting fourth in the league but only behind third on goal difference. And finally in netball, the first team managed to extend their unbeaten run in the league, 5 games, 5 wins. Yesterday they defeated Liverpool away from home 32-30. A win against second place in the league will give them a little bit of breathing room ahead of the restart in January. That's all for Uni Sports this week. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Sam. If you want to know more about the university's sport, make sure to follow blowthewhistle.uos on Instagram.
Now, referees have taken strike action across the northwest after cases of both verbal and physical abuse directed towards referees have increased.
Our reporter Leo joins us now. Hi Leo, how are you?
Good. How are you both? Good to see you again.
Good, thanks. So tell us more.
So referees across Liverpool have been on strike over the last weekend after refs were abused in games. They were spat on, they were physically assaulted, punched, loads of verbal abuse directed towards them as well. So the referees voted in unison not to go ahead with the weekend's games. And although that doesn't sound like much, it made It meant that 150 games didn't go ahead, 150 grassroots games didn't go ahead in one of Liverpool's biggest leagues of the LCFA, the Liverpool County Football Association, which not only is a money loss for obviously the money makers and the pitch owners and the league owners, but it meant 150 teams, say every team has 9, 10 players. That's a lot of players missing out on the weekly football from ages from under 7s all the way up to under 18s, under 19. So it's a lot of games being missed out on, and a lot of cases where, you know, kids haven't been able to go out and play footy with their mates and have a good time. Boys and girls as well, both the male and female leagues were suspended after this strike action took place.
Because Leo, you're a grassroots referee as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played grassroots football, and some of the abuse that referees get, it's just disgusting. Do you think that the FA needs to do more then?
Definitely. It's easier said than done for the FA to do more. There was an instance a couple of weeks ago in Manchester where the FA implemented games where they were known as silent games, where only the referees and the players could communicate. The managers and even the fans, obviously parents on the sidelines, weren't proper fans, but they weren't allowed to talk in the slightest. It was a controversial thing, and it was met with backlash as the FA expected. But however, obviously, if no one's speaking, then the referees did experience less abuse. As you said, I'm a grassroots referee. I've been refereeing since I was 14 in Liverpool, and I've had a lot of abuse over the years. Nothing sincere. Nothing, you know, that would make me want to quit. Obviously, I still do it, but it's remarkable how much abuse you do get from little kids as well. Like I've played all my life as well, and I've never refereed someone like my own age, like a big game. I've only ever refed kids games, predominantly girls football as well, and I still get lots of abuse from little girls as well as little boys as well. But it's staggering to me how much abuse I get as a referee. Verbal abuse directed at me. I've had managers come over and square up to me, thinking that they'll batter me. But yeah, it's crazy. And you know, you could argue that refs don't get paid enough for it, but that's another discussion for another time. Another example, in Manchester just last week, a referee by the name of Dave Bradshaw was admitted to hospital after he was assaulted by a player in a game in Platt Bridge in Manchester. And the referees nationwide, because it was widely reported in the news, have been discussing further strike planned actions, as well as the Liverpool refs have done so far.
And what do you think needs to be done to make this change, to stop this happening?
It's a tough one, because grassroots football is played up and down the country by the majority of kids these days. You know, everyone at a young age plays football, so it's a lot of games, a lot of matches. It was really hard to control and to implement a change happening. I think on a morality point of view, for parents who go and support their kids, from my point of view, they should know better. They should know better when they're going on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning to go watch their little daughter or their son or their niece or nephew or whatever play football, have a laugh, have fun with their mates. They should know better than to stand there on the sideline and giving abuse to the referee, who is, you know, some cases my age, but some cases younger as well. They're younger than me, 14, 15 years old. Going and abusing referees, it's not good, really.
Are you going to stick to reporting, Leo, or are you going to become a full-time referee?
I think I'm sticking to reporting, stay nice and warm and dry as well, and don't get any abuse, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, stick to reporting.
Who knows? Thanks very much, Leo. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Leo. That's all from us today. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Blow the Whistle.
Yes, we'll be back next week at 4 p.m. for the last episode of the year, maybe a Christmas special too. Keep up to date with us on social media at blowthewhistle.us.
Bye from me.
And bye from me.